So guys, we are still following our path to make character integrations into DLS more easier. And for that, we will now focus on adding virtual bounds in this session, and I will show you how you can do them very easily to data tables and a little bit of blueprint coding and C++ of course as well. And yeah, let's dive into the topic. So in the last session we added a plugin, and now we need to add a class, and for that you can go into engine C++ classes and do a right click. If you don't see it, you can set it here, the visibility. So you say show C++ classes, and then you should see them here. And if we do a right click here, we can say new C++ class, and then we scroll down all the way down and say we want to add a blueprint function library. That's where you can introduce C++ code into your projects quite easily and don't have to mess a lot with C++. It's very straightforward to code with them. And let me check. So yeah, that's fine. My naming convention is to use the TT as a prefix for to attack. Sorry for that, but that's how I code. And then we will call this toolbox blueprint library. And we say it's public, of course, and we click on create class. So yeah, that's quite convenient now. It opens Visual Studio, and here it tries to compile the library already for us. So let's see if it works. So process was successful. Yay. That's great. So, and what we have now is here in plugins, here's the content folder where we'll add stuff quite in a few minutes, a few seconds. And here we have the new folder here, public, and there's our function library. And if we do a double click here, we will go directly into Visual Studio. And let me minimize it again. What we now need is the following. We need a new blue utility. They are called blue utilities, editor utilities basically as well. So here it's called editor utility blueprint. And there we search for asset. So it's an asset action utility, and we call it BP underscore virtual bound functions. Yeah, functions. So, and we will also create a folder here and say it and call it editor hooks. So sure, you can choose different names, but I like them here. And move this into this folder, open it, and it will be the same like you're very used to if you coded a lot in blueprints already. And we can here click on override and say get supported class, then delete the parent here, and we will say skeleton here, skeleton. So compile, save, and what we can do now is add a new function, and we will create 3 functions. One is dump virtual bounds, the other one is add virtual bounds, and the other one is add virtual bounds from data table. So, and this one will get a new input, and we here say data table row handle, and we say here data table, compile, save. So, and what we can do as well is give it a category. So we say character tools. Then we can do drag and drop here, move it here. And this add virtual bounds will call this function. You will see in a few minutes why I'm doing this. And here we promote this to a local variable. Say L underscore, that's my naming convention. Default virtual bounds. So, and compile, save. So the stuff is already mostly set up. Here we will also promote a local variable, say AL data table. So this one will avoid crossing wires basically. And yeah, so let me show you how the stuff works. It's really it's really interesting. What we can do now is do a right click here on the mannequin. It's a skeleton basically, and here you can say scripted actions, and here are, oh, I did something wrong. Wait, let me check. So yeah, I don't know why, but sometimes Unreal Engine decides to introduce a space here, so we can also add a space here, compile again, save, and let me move to this one here and do a right click again, and now we have those functions here. So what you can do now is, yeah, perform automation processes, functions, and so on specific assets in the content browser, which is very useful for the stuff we want to develop now. And how we can do it is the following. If we say virtual dump virtual bounds, we can do the following. Say asset get selected assets, and here we say for or user for each loop, and then we cast this to a skeleton, cast to skeleton, and here we can try to find if there are functions. No, of course not. It's not exposed to blueprints, sadly. We can add a bone track, can remove all bone tracks and so on, but we cannot get virtual bones. That's what we need to code now. And let me open Visual Studio. So here's Visual Studio, and we go into the header file. I'm using the shortcut Control K and O. I really love shortcuts, guys. So if you love shortcuts as well, you will learn a lot during this session, and I will share the shortcut with you as well. So here we added the blueprint library, of course, and there we can introduce custom functions for which we can call from blueprints. And the functions we will introduce are the following. Let me get the signatures for you. So give me a second. So we will have this one here. Let me change the name, TT Toolbox. And then I will explain what we will do with those functions. And we also need this function here. So let me copy this one. So the first functions will dump the virtual bounds to the editor, and how it's called in Unreal Engine, let me check. So basically the message, no, not the message log, the output log. There we will see later the virtual bounds, which are contained in a skeleton. And the other function, let me share them with you as well. This will add virtual bounds to the skeleton. So we are doing the following. We say, yeah, virtual bound name, source name, target bound name, and skeleton. And these are static functions, so we don't need an object instance in C++ for it. And how we can implement them is if we copy the stuff here and press again Control KO and do copy paste, and you remove the statics, also the macros here. Oh, sorry, I forgot to explain the macros. Sorry guys. So here you can say it's a U function and it's callable from blueprints. That's what it means basically. And the other stuff was set up for us, so we don't care. What I do most of the time is remove this one here, and it's a U class. That's what, yeah, the editor set up for us. So, and we also need this name here so that we know the scope of the function, and then this one here this one here and here. And what we do, if everything succeeded, we do return true for the bool. Same here. Let me make it a little bit better. So what is missing? I'm not sure what is going wrong. So I like to write the arguments like this, because otherwise you have a so long line and it might get confusing. So how we will start implement? We will at first start dump virtual bounds function, and for that we will need to check the input arguments. Then we will have to prepare a string which we use to output to the how was it called? I forgot always how it's named in Unreal Engine. To the output log. And let me think. And then we will of course have to dump the virtual bounds. And that's a quite convenient function. We will copy them to the clipboard. And yeah, that's it. So how can we check if, or what needs to be checked is the following: if the skeleton is valid. Basically there's a function in Unreal Engine where you can say is valid, give it a pointer, and then it checks for us if the skeleton is valid. So if it is not a null pointer and if it's not deleted from the garbage collector. And then of course if it's not valid, we return false, so it's an error, and we give a proper feedback to the user of this function, say called dump virtual bounds with invalid skeleton. So first thing is checked, so we will not see crashes hopefully. The other check we need to do is the following. So here we ask the skeleton, because that's now possible in C++. We will go to the signature in a few seconds and check if we have virtual bounds. So it's basically an array, and if it's equal or less than 0, then it's an error of course, and we have no virtual bounds. So then we can say the skeleton, that's from here, the path, full path. So it's basically like an Unreal Engine where it's stored in the content folder or in the plugin or so. And then we say it does not contain any virtual bounds. So it's basically not what we expected. And then we return false as well. And let me check what needs to be coded as next. So at first let's go to the signature, sorry. Where we are is in the skeleton H file, and this is basically the implementation of Unreal Engine where all data and so on is stored from a skeleton. And if we scroll down a little bit, we see accessor for the array of virtual bounds on the skeleton. So it's a public function here, public, and we are free to call them. And sadly it's not exposed to blueprints, but we will do this now. And then we get this f virtual bound structure. And this structure is quite simple. That's of course exported to blueprints. No, not really. It's not exported. It's just saying U property. So it's not exported. I was wrong, sorry. And here we have the virtual bound, target bound name, and the source bound name. So then we can access those data or this data. And now we get to the tricky part, which I need to explain a little bit more. As I said, here we will prepare a string to dump the virtual bounds to the output log. And for that we need an f string. That's basically a class in Unreal Engine where you can store strings and do some operations on them, like the plus operator here. And if it is greater than 1, we need to introduce a bracket here. We will see that why in a few seconds. And then we go on with this for loop here. And this for loop here has a count, so that we count how many virtual bounds we already have processed. And there we ask with a for loop. And here's something missing, I see. Here needs to be a reference to avoid copying the data around. And here we say get virtual bounds, and then we iterate through all virtual bounds. And what we do is we add a new bracket, an open bracket, and then we say virtual bound name equals to, of course, the virtual bound name. Then we introduce a comma, and for the next member, source bound name, target bound name, you will see why I'm doing this. It's very convenient, and you might get surprised how easy it is to code such stuff if you are used to C++ a little bit and can read those lines. And then we say we increment the count. And if the counter is greater than 0, we of course introduce a new comma to get basically a list of virtual bounds and source bound names and target bound names. And if we have this, we will do the following: new if statement, because if we have an open bracket, we will also need a close bracket. And then comes the interesting part. We dump the stuff to the output log with this function here. We say UE underscore log temp, log, and then we say text. That's how you need to code in Unreal Engine. I don't like those macros, but that's how it is. And then we say dump string, and don't forget the star to convert this. So let me see if I can show this to you. Yes, to get a tchar star, basically. And then you will see this in the output log. And now comes the very interesting function. So I really like this one, but that's a pure editor function. And you can say platform application miscellaneous : clipboard copy, and then you can basically copy the content of the string to the clipboard. But as you see already, we have a missing include, and the include is the following. So we need to wait, let me go back. So you need to include this one here as well, and also use the if statement. So that we say we only want to use this if we have an editor built. And let me check if we can already compile it. So now it gets very interesting, because I haven't used yet much the live coding feature, but let's see if it works. If it breaks something or not. In Unreal Engine 5, it's a bit more convenient to write C++ code. And here we see we get an error basically. Sorry, it's only in German, but I will try to explain it or translate it. I don't know how to get the English language here. It says F platform application misc is no class or namespace, or the clipboard copy function is not found. That's what it basically means. So, and what is missing if we go back to C++ is the following. If we open this file, do a right click and say, where is it? Oh, there is no, oh, it's this one. Sorry, it's also in German. There we can go into this folder, and then I do a right click as well and open the folder where it's stored. And then you will see how I fix those build issues. And here's the hull. Go public. So basically what we need is the application core module of Unreal Engine. So, and this one needs to be added to the build. So we open the, where is it? Source. Yes, here it is, build. The C# file. And there we have private dependency module names range, and we just add them here and try to build again. Go back to Unreal Engine, so close this window, of course, and try to build again. So it's a very small button, but it works very good. Let's see how live coding works. Why does it not work? Let me check. In my other project where I have set up this stuff already and tested it quite well. So I think what we need to do is maybe close the editor. It might not work. So let me close the stuff and try to build here again. So I'm using F7, or you can do a right click and build. So maybe it works. Let's see. Yep, it worked. So if you introduce new stuff via live coding, seems not to be working. But yeah, that's fine. We can just restart the editor. So give it a second. So there it is, and we open the blueprint again, and now we should have a quite convenient function which says dump virtual bounds. That's the function we created in C++, and select everything and press the Q key to align everything, compile, save, and clear the output log. And hopefully, if we did everything right, we should be able to call our new function here, where we say dump virtual bounds. And if you go to the output log, so yeah, it's correct. Our error message is working, does not contain any virtual bound. And that's what I meant. So this skeleton is stored at this path. And maybe, let me check quickly. There seems to be something wrong with the error message. So, oh no, that's fine. It just says skeleton. That's what is returned from get full name. I was wondering a little bit about this first skeleton and then slash game and so on. But yeah, that's the type. Seems to be the type. Yeah, that's quite nice. I did not know that. So let's select in Unreal Engine the Manny, basically, from ALS. So where is it? We go to character assets, mannequin, skeleton, and here we do a right click again and try to run our function dump virtual bounds. And as you see, it's dumped to the console, or to the, I always say console, sorry. It's dumped to the output log. And if we open, for example, editor like Notepad++, so create a new file. So here you see all the virtual bounds that are contained in the skeleton. It's quite nice. And what we can do now with this is the following. Let me close those stuff here. Is the following. We have this in our clipboard, and we can, let me go to the plugin editor hooks, and we here say structs. So where are structs? Blueprints, structure. My naming convention here is as well st for structure, tt, and say virtual bone. And we duplicate this Control D and say virtual bones. And what we do is the following. We introduce 3 names. So click on add variable here and say this is called, you need to use the same name, so otherwise it will not work. So virtual bone name, source bone name, and the target bone name. Save. And now the interesting part, we can do the following. sttt virtual bone here and change it to an array. Save. And we can say here virtual bones. So, and as we are still having the stuff in the clipboard, no we don't, we need to do it again. So let's save everything and go into ALS mannequin skeleton. Again, right click, character, dump virtual bounds. And now we can do the following, which is so convenient, paste. So now we have all the virtual bound data here. So I really like this feature. And it's so convenient basically, because you can just copy around stuff. And that's why we created this weird string before in C++. So it's an open bracket, and every array element from here to here was basically processed in the the loop, in the for loop, which was here basically. So this loop here creates this element, and if we have more than one virtual bound, we need to introduce the first bracket as well and the last bracket. That's why we need this count variable here. And yeah, then we can copy virtual bounds around. And let me also show you something more. So what we can do as well is if we move those structs to a folder where we can say structures. So let's clean a little bit up the stuff here and say a new folder and say data. And here we can create a new data table. It's a miscellaneous data table. And here we can say virtual bound. Yeah, virtual bounds. Okay. And say dt underscore for data table virtual bounds. Save. And now you will have a data table where we can say we want to add a new row, and we give this ALS virtual bounds. And yeah, because we have set the default values, it will always add those virtual bounds to a new row basically. But I don't like it, to be honest, because maybe we have a different system and different stuff. So we go to structures again and delete this stuff. So then we don't have any default values anymore, and this one should be gone here as well, but we can still paste them as well and get them back. So save. And one last thing, then we will also already close the session and do a new session where we add virtual bounds to the skeleton via utilities. Let me check, where is this blueprint? Here's this blueprint. So what we did here is the following, this one here. So we go to add virtual bounds, and here we can set a default data table here, virtual bounds, and use this row. So, and what we can do later in the next session, what we will do in the next session, if we do a right click here and scripted asset actions, go to character tools, then we can click here on add virtual bounds, and then it will add the virtual bounds. Or what we can do as well is if we call this function, then it will ask us to select a data table, and we can select the row here and then click OK, and then it will add magically the virtual bounds. And yeah, I really hope you liked the session, and let me know in the comments below if it was too fast, if I should go more into details in into some topics, or yeah, if you have some ideas how I could improve the code or so. And yeah, see you in the next session.